Hi, this is Little Dwarf playing games while rambling incoherently into a microphone. Why? Well, just because I can, and I continue with Tyranny blind. Now I have arrived at the court of Tunon, so let's see what's up.
I got it.
You call yourselves officers of Kyros' army, but your conduct falls short of my expectations. The court finds your accounts of Vendrien's well lacking, rife with misdirection and fallacy, fouled with baseless accusation.
The shadows beneath Tunon's cloak darken and flare around him. Murmurs of unease erupt through the court. Your Honor, I have relayed the events as I experienced them. You can well imagine why my version conflicts with his. She makes a dismissive gesture to the Scarlet Chorus's representative. On my honor, and of that of the great general, I would sooner snap my sword than perjure myself before you, Archon. Oh, so you imply the falsehood comes easier to my lips than yours. You're a fool if you believe the Archon of Justice won't see through your lies because the disfavored think themselves better than an honest gang.
Silence. The contradictions in your statements will be examined, and falsities threshed from truths. If we find you have perjured yourselves, Bleden Mark will see to your fate.
The Archon turns as you feel his gaze upon you.
Fatebinder, we will start with the matter of the Archons. Graven Ash and the Voices of Nerat have declared war upon each other. In addition to violating Kyros' peace, they have thrown the conquest of the Tears into disarray. By all accounts, these hostilities began shortly after your arrival. Tell us what transpired.
The Voices of Nerat may have killed Graven Ash's son, or worse. That's true, and I'm more than happy to throw Nerat under the bus, so...
Could this be true? The senseless killing of a good Northman, especially the Archon's bloodkin, is no small act of war. The Voices of Nerat would answer for this crime.
Clearly the Fatebinder has spent too much time resolving problems of others. He sees only controversy and intrigue. It's no wonder that we're worse off than before he arrived. The Archons could not agree on who should lead the siege, and descended into accusations of treachery. It seemed a mutual spat. The disfavored were more deserving of the honor. Our tactics and training outmatched the Vendrien Guard at every turn. What balderdash, what balderdash, the disfavored couldn't tip over a straw hat if they had a week to strategize. Our holding mob was better equipped to overwhelm the Vendrien Guard. Our recruits were ready to throw themselves at the enemy if only Asher and his legion would agree to a plan.
The Fatebinder presents testimony. I warn you both against speaking out of turn. Something more than a mere disagreement unraveled this campaign. But I will return to that in time. Let us speak of Ascension Hall. We have heard troubling accounts of your actions, including claims that you worked with the Oathbreakers known as the Vendrien Guard.
It's interesting that it doesn't say it's a lie here, which I very much believe it is. And I think it's a stupid lie that doesn't work, but let's try and pursue this course of action. As I said, my best defense is actually that to claim that I'm still somehow loyal to Kyros, because if I weren't, the edict wouldn't have been broken. I took the Citadel for Kyros.
As you say, and yet that was not evident from your actions. All accounts claim that you sided with the Oathbreakers. This would be the very definition of working against the Overlord's wishes. Enlighten the court. How is this not treason?
If my actions were not true to Kyros' will, they would not have satisfied the Overlord's edict. Yeah, exactly.
Continue.
The Archon hovers in thoughtful silence. The edict stated that Kyros' servant must claim Ascension Hall. The resolution of the edict proves my loyalty. For a long time, the adjudicator hovers in silence, shadows trailing from below his robes.
I will consider this testimony at length. The court thanks you for it. Is there anything you wish to add at this time?
I have told you all that I know.
Your testimony is accepted by the court. The statements of our guests raise questions in my mind. There is much about this campaign that has caused me to wonder. A shipment of iron weapons was short on arrival. Where coveted iron is concerned, I don't believe it to be a clerical error. One of my agents recovered this seal in Echo Call. It belongs to a merchant collective. Lethian's Crossing is teeming with their kind. If you would root out treachery, I would advise starting there. Petitioners, leave us. I would have a private audience with the Fatebinder. Ascend and join me. You will find the way opened.
Okay, do you have anything to say? Fatebinder, the lieutenant gives you a curt nod. I'm ill at ease in this polished hall, but I admit it's a reprieve from the battlefield and the training grounds. If Asher needs me to stay here and represent his interests throughout the occupation, then I'll be up for the task. I'm duty-bound to remain civil to you in this vaunted court, but don't push it, traitor. Aurora avoids making eye contact with you, but instead carries on speaking with her company. Fatebinder, you're no stranger to Tunon's court, but I prefer to spend as little time here as possible. In spite of those closed walls, I feel strangely exposed. He glances up at Tunon. If you were ever feeling generous, feel free to send a few healthy oathbreakers to the voices. We could always use fodder for the front lines. Only if it doesn't cause too many problems with your new alliance. You'll make our time in the tiers an interesting one, won't you? He smiles for an uncomfortably long time. Of course you will. He ignores you with a stern and distant expression. I'd immolate you right where you stand if it weren't for Tunon breathing down our necks. Let's talk to the other Fatebinders before I talk to Tunon himself. I will not pretend to understand the strategic decision you have made, but they are yours all the same. The Fatebinder of War claps you with an excessive strength on the back. A greeting and a warning both. Even so, I'm curious about your travels in the tiers. Word has reached me regarding your negotiation tactics at Apex. I must admit, I am impressed you have made headway with the Southern wretches. If they are open to reason, it would seem they are not as ignorant as the Archon of War would have us believe. Come, let us speak freely. How were you singled out to become a Fatebinder? I cannot speak for the other Fatebinders, but I joined the court when I was still a boy, and impetuous beyond reason. I had been imprisoned with a death sentence for the crime of desecrating corpses. He laughs hard and hearty. It was nothing so exciting as you're no doubt imagining. I was merely burning corpses that awaited burial. Before the local authority could see me on the gallows, the adjudicator claimed me a great talent waiting to be realized, needing only to be steered. Why burn the bodies? Corpses piling in the street spread plague faster than the filthiest of rats. I was but 10 and a weak fighter. I did what I could for my homeland. Well, so why was it a crime? It seems like a very sensible thing to do in times of plague. There was a time when the Northmen were a superstitious stock, a time before Kyros brought reason to the realms. The people of my city believed that without proper rites, I was cheating our fallen warriors from returning to the land. Well, it's a good thing Tunon spared you, because to be honest, as I said, that seemed a pretty sensible thing to do. I don't think it should have been a crime. As I said, the Adjudicator saw within me something of rare value, as is true for us all. You as well were chosen for your great court, for our great court, for which I am grateful. As the Fatebinder of War, I rely heavily on your talents. By all means, you are free to pick my mind with enthusiasm. I'm curious about Tunon's masks. They can be rather unsettling, can't they? Even to one such as me, but I can assure you, the innocent need not fear the objective, emotionless gaze. What of the Adjudicator's masks specifically would you like to know? I would like to know about the Silent Face. The Silent Face is the face that Tunon shows to us now, and for that we are fortunate beyond belief. The Silent Face is a patient one, a face for listening, as Tunon presides over all matters brought to the court, taking great pains to ensure all sides of an issue are heard. I want to know about the Face of Resolve. Tunon's last known dawning of the fate of Resolve was the moment he judged and called ruin to half of the districts in the Bastard City. Since then, he has ruled our northern tier justly, calmly, and with efficient diplomacy. I want to ask about the face that is no more. Tunon is said to have worn a third mask in eons past. I have heard a rumor that the face displeased Kyros and thus was destroyed, as happens to all persons and objects that displease our Overlord. Have you ever seen Tunon change his masks? In the way that you and I would change our raiment? No, not as such. And yet I have seen the masks shift. They switch without the Adjudicator or anyone as much as laying a hand on them. It's not something you watch unfold. It's not something you can watch unfold. After a time, you merely realize it has already happened. There is work enough for the court that we shouldn't occupy ourselves wandering over mysteries. Could you remind me of the history and origin of the Fatebinders? The seasoned warrior rubs his finger against the line of stubble across his cheek. We are a relatively young order, though we have spanned the past 2 centuries. While the voices of Nerat and the Graven Ashe need armies to execute their will, Tunon wields but a modest court of vassals. We exist as an extension of his law. There is no place in all of Terratus beyond our judgment. Tell me more about Kyros' armies, our allies. Ah yes, with friends like these, our work is often self-explanatory. Were you asking about the Scarlet Chorus or the Disfavored? The Scarlet Chorus. The Scarlet Chorus soldiers hail from every corner of every realm. As the Chorus marches, it conscripts indiscriminately for those it has conquered to replenish its ranks. There is no continuity of command in the Chorus. Nerat allows, encourages even, the strong to challenge their leaders. But the Chorus has numbers, and brute force is almost always a viable solution, as much as Rogalus insists otherwise. Besides, the Chorus draws strength from the multitudes it swallows. Its blood chanters have taken knowledge from various tiers mystics, and many of the Chorus's best soldiers were grown here in the south. What about the Disfavored? The Disfavored are the iron teeth of Kyros' great phalanx. Armed with the best weapons and the most comprehensive training, are led by the brilliant Graven Ashe. The Disfavored have no equals in the open battle. The Legion has a saying, Graven Ashe protects, and it's no empty boast. The Archon of War is able to lend his will and strength to his soldiers, and give them endurance beyond human limits. I have great respect for the Disfavored, but I know where I stand with them. They are a very close-knit band, all of them from the northern families, and many of them related to each other. He smiles, wistful, but considering our role in the Great Hierarchy, I cannot fault Graven Ashe for being selective. I'm not sure if I'm going to confide with him. Like, I guess they know that I've done it, so I might as well say this, see what his response is, and lead it from there. I've claimed the Spire at Vendrien's Well. So the court whispers are true. He rubs his fingers along the underside of his chin. pondering his thoughts with great weight. After a moment, he offers you a wistful sort of smile. Someday I would like to witness for myself this tower that has risen above the realms, like a blade thrust into the sky. I would hear of your past victories in the war, or of recent events. Have you not yet tired of my tales? I do admit I never tire of telling them. He laughs hearty and deep. Very well then, let me champion the feats of my conquest. Let the glory of Kyros' reign fall on any ears that would hear of it. Recently, I've taken to studying the prowess of the Sudden Beastmen, particularly the wild tribes, and have reflected on their potential merit as allies. The Scarlet Chorus is wise to desire their strength, a strength I once faced and myself barely survived. The disfavored ought to consider arming them for battle, rather than merely working them as slaves. Farewell. Greetings. Your exploits at Vendrien's Well are a topic of much discussion. One begins to question the intent behind your methods, Stanis Javert. I hope you are not wandering from a path from which you cannot return. In spite of my reservations, I am most curious to hear of your travels. What can I do for you? She touches a gentle hand to your shoulder. Has anything happened while I was away? There have been whispers that Cairn grew disloyal to Graven Ash's command during the campaign in Azure. I took up the mantle of investigating near Plainsgate, and judging the rumors to be true, dispatched Cairn by proclaiming the Kyros' Edict of Stone. The very earth turned against the traitorous Archon, as the region split asunder in righteous judgment. How have you occupied your time in the Bastard City? Tunon sends me assignments here and there. I settle disputes between the locals when the adjudicator is otherwise preoccupied. She smirks. Everything from trade disagreements to pushing Kyros squatters out of basements. Real rewarding work. She waves it off. The glory of war is not an honor to be served for the likes of us. We're the fish swimming in Tunon's wake, picking up scraps along the way. We're rather large and imposing compared to the bottom feeders of the tiers, but fish all the same. I would like to know more about Tunon. Tunon is our Overlord's fair and exacting adjudicator. He speaks with the voice of Kyros' law, and his word is his judgment. All of this and more you can learn by asking him yourself. Go on, or does he intimidate you still? She chuckles softly. I jest, of course. I have some concerns about the war. You're free to share them in my confidence. She leans in closer. I guess I would push for peace. For mercy at least. I'm not sure to what degree they would listen to me, but I would much rather deal with a merciful enemy than an overly cruel one. Bloodshed and brutality reign supreme. Peace cannot follow such cruelty. Such is the price of conquest. We will bring order to the land ruled by greed and corruption. When we have shown them the true way of Kyros, the masses will weep their gratitude and beg for our favor. She nods to the assembled nobles in the hall. It has already begun. You seem to know much about my actions. Have you been spying on me? Don't act so surprised. It is my duty to ensure that those who operate under the adjudicator's name adhere to the spirit of the law, if not the very letter. And those who don't will be dealt with swiftly and efficiently at the point of Bleden Mark's blade. The Fatebinder slips a slim dagger from the folds of her purple garb, flipping the weapon almost idly in the air. Of course, that is assuming I don't dispatch them first. I take my duty seriously, and I'm very good at it. Okay, farewell. Fatebinder, you return. Rogalus looks you up and down with an inscrutable expression. You look as if you have questions for me to untangle. Ask. I am feeling generous. Tell me about some of the past Archons. Nox Mirea, the Archon of Pestilence, was disliked in her circles. When she opened her eyes to see and her mouth to speak, it is said that flies would gust into the air, swarming as thick as to blacken the sky. She died in the 20th year of her birth. following a string of unusual and grotesque symptoms. Where did you study when you were younger? I have been a ward of the court for as long as I've been aware. As a child, I demonstrated wholly perfect recall and absorbed all that Tunon and my tutors had to offer. I remember hating all of the lectures and wishing I could learn at my pace. Funny how I envied the sages of the Tears, how they could spend their whole lives reading and never exhaust their library. Of course, now the Citadel is nothing more than a burning waste. What do you think of the other Fatebinders? You'll need to be more specific, I'm afraid. There is, on last count, slightly more than a handful of us. What's your opinion on the Fatebinder of War? None of us keen, brash, and a hearty braggart with a fondness for bloodshed. He can be utterly unbearable at times. His justice is fair, even if skewed towards rather exciting and uncompromising punishments at times. What's your opinion of the Fatebinder of Balance? Kallio is the finest amongst us. Her discernment is beyond reproach, and she is perhaps Tunon's favorite. She has a mind of suspicion and observation that makes others uneasy. We who operate within the confines of the law have nothing to fear, of course. What's your opinion of me? Whatever it may have been, it's reduced as of late. He pierces you with a severe look. No matter why you lent your favor to the southern barbarians, it has cast you in the darkest suspicion. Be advised, your objectivity is in question. We will be watching. Can you tell me about the Old Walls and the Bane? Tell me about the Old Walls. We know little enough about the ancient structures, save that they predate all historical record. The forbidden ruins crisscrossed the Tears and the north alike, centuries before we raised our cities. The only one old enough to guess is likely Kyros. Tell me about the Bane. The Bane are found in the Old Walls, but much of their defining qualities still escape me. They are creatures of smoke, claw, and fang. If you find yourself unfortunate enough to fight one, remember that spells are effective against them, but grab the attention of others lurking near. I'd like to know more about the Tears. The political entities of the Tears are essentially split beyond the Bastard Tier, the Younger Realms, and the Free Cities. Of which one would you like to know? What can you tell me of the Bastard Tier? The Bastard Tier is the northernmost of the Tiers, and was the first to bow to Kyros' realm, though the knee they bent fell unwillingly. Kyros had his eye on the Bastard Tier for many years before he marched on her capital city. This is the hub of trade and commerce. Claim the markets and the people will follow. I'm curious to know more about the Younger Realms. The Younger Realms sprawl the middle and southernmost of the Tiers, can be catalogized as follows: Apex, Azure, Haven, and Stalwart. Azure was renowned for its exceptionally fertile land, which fed the whole of the Tiers. That was before Kyros' Edict of Stone blighted the land. Stalwart is also worth mention, for it comprises the whole of the southernmost tier and proves the toughest and most defensible of the realms. It is often said that the other realms will not fall, while Stalwart yet stands. The local army wages bitter war against the disfavored. Although the Edict of Storm has cut the best off of their defenses, it's only a matter of time before Stalwart falls. I would like to hear about the Free Cities. There are 3 free cities remaining: Lost Harbor, Spiral's Maw, and Barik in Chains. The first and the strongest of the cities was the Settling Sun, which Kyros crushed in 429 with the Edict of Tumult. After that, the remaining 3 cities were quick to surrender. I want to talk about the Sages. I will not speak of the Sages. They are no better than charlatans and cons, wholly selfish in their ill pursuit to hoard all knowledge from others. They are self-blinded by their own deceptions and clever manipulations. They alone cause their own undoing and are solely to blame for the burning library, one of the most grievous wrongs in the known histories, for which they can never be forgiven.
Can't do that.
And that's certainly an interesting legal opinion, because we did that. It's like he's of the opinion that our enemies made us commit war crimes against them. Because if they, I presume that's what he meant, if they wouldn't have resisted, we wouldn't have done that.
Can't do that.
The ornament atop the throne resembles Tunon's mask. It always seems to meet your gaze, regardless of where you are standing.
This civil war, this feud, is an insult to Kyros' peace. It should not have taken the better part of a year to silence the last vestiges of the Oathbreakers.
Tunon regards you in thoughtful silence. I agree, Your Honor.
Our allies squabble while our enemies regroup. It falls upon the court to measure the extent of the damage, and to execute the agents of disorder. I suspect that treachery, negligence, disunity, and greed have infected one or both of our esteemed allies. Until you are instructed otherwise, this matter is the court's primary focus. Graven Ash and the voices of Nerat must be examined in close detail. You are charged with observing the Archons and presenting your case that one of them has wrought chaos and disorder upon the tiers.
Could they both be guilty?
It's possible, but the momentum of the conquest up to this point suggests otherwise. The failure at Vendrien's well implies a coordinated will behind the chaos. As always, you will be held accountable for what you do in the court's name. But you are free to conduct your investigation in the manner of your choosing. You must expect lies, misdirection, and manipulation. Suffer not such obstructions of justice. At first, we were not amused by your alliance with the Tiersmen, but there is a logic, a pragmatism to the situation that we are willing to entertain. You deputized our enemies to bring order out of chaos. So long as you keep them on a tight leash, we will permit this union to continue under your auspices. The opportunity to bring peace through collaboration rather than warfare is one we shouldn't ignore. But if these Oathbreakers trust you, then take advantage of the connection. If indeed Graven Ash or the voices of Nerat conspire with our enemies, this would explain much of the events in Vendrien's well and the feud ignited therein.
I will speak with them and learn what they know.
Be careful that you don't invite them too closely into your confidence. I would not empower the rabble by sending a servant of the court to do their bidding. Ensure that your objectives come first in all things. You see the nobles milling about this court. You hear the anxiety and uncertainty of a conquered people. Day and night I audience declarations of fealty to curry favor. What you don't see are the dungeons beneath the court, and the hundreds of Tiersmen who strained against Kyros' rule. I warrant that your Oathbreaker allies know a few of them, whether by blood or by allegiance. Let it be known that their lives are forfeit to the court's mercy, and any action meant to shatter what order we have established will be met with the swiftest reprisal. Blood will flow through these halls. Is that clear?
Abundantly clear, Your Honor.
I'm glad we understand each other. Be sure your new friends understand as well. Do not toy with the locals. Subjugate them if they will serve. Destroy them if they have exhausted their usefulness. I will not permit them to vanish into the tiers, there to gather strength with renewed defiance for the Overlord. Your fellow Fatebinders have been busy acting as my eyes and ears. I have a few leads for you to follow. You should, of course, speak with your brothers and sisters of the court if you need further counsel. The disfavored have made use of the Sage's network of dovecotes and messenger birds as they come under capture. I've heard multiple claims of strategic communications gone missing. The Sages are broken, their citadel in flames, but they were not slaughtered to the last. Some of their numbers still congregate around the smoking husk of their burning library. If they have been reading disfavored communications, learn what they learned, then execute them. There is a final matter to discuss. A sensitive topic.
Though it's impossible to gauge from his expression, Tunon seems more wary than usual. What concerns the court, Your Honor?
In spite of the many shortcomings at Vendrien's well, you managed to make a name for yourself. You proclaimed an Edict of Kyros, resolved its demanding conditions, and ascended the mountain spire. Any one of these feats would be worthy of recognition by the highest authority. You managed to accomplish 3.
Tunon hovers in observance, awaiting your response. I am in a privileged position to accomplish incredible deeds.
It pleases me that you grasp your role, as long as you temper it with a sense of duty. Whether by design or by accident, you have captured the attention of Kyros' army and the local tiersmen alike. This is no small opportunity, and the court charges you with exploiting your new standing to its fullest potential. You have a title in our hierarchy. However, it's a little-known secret that one's standing in the world is determined by their infamy, their deeds, and how they come to be known. Mind this notion as you bring justice to this lawless frontier. There may come a time when your deeds speak for you louder than any title. Whatever you did to capture the attention of the masses at Vendrien's well, I would encourage you to do so again.
Understood. I will be known as a champion of justice.
Good. It falls to us to set a new standard for these southern barbarians. You are dismissed. Should the court have need of your presence, you will receive word. Go forth and do my bidding, and bring glory and honor to the tiers in Kyros' name.
Tunon rubs his gavel against the floor, the singular note resounding throughout the hall. Now, to be fair, that went a lot better than I thought it would, and a lot better than I think it had any right to. Because, like, why didn't they question me more on the fact that I've not only seemingly thrown my lot in with the rebels, but I've also directly slaughtered Kyros' soldiers. Like, I've killed Graven Ash's second in command. Why does no one bring it up?
Will do.
But I was supposed to ask about Barik, right? You return. It is gratifying to see that war has not caused you to forget your roots. What is it that you wish to know? I have a request from Barik of the Stone Shields. That troublesome armored figure staring daggers at me from the antechamber? What does it want? Tunon glances beyond you to the distant, imposing silhouette. He came to inquire if the Forgebound could help remove his armor. If he had become encased in iron, that is none of the court's concern. My Forgebound smiths are occupied crafting weapons for the army, and I would not have their focus diverted to liberate one soldier from his raiment. As you will, Your Honor. Now that it's decided, is there anything else you need from the court? Well, apparently quite a lot. I wish to speak about the matters of law. Then you are well situated, for my court is the legal heart of this corrupt and uncivilized realm. What matter draws your curiosity? You're already well versed in Kyros' laws, but I'm happy to discuss the particulars. I wish to discuss Kyros' peace. The cornerstone of our wartime efforts, of course. Kyros' peace guarantees all willing supplicants under the Overlord's authority a place in her world. The exact wording of the bylaw is, "Your law is not yours to discard. The Overlord has plans for you." I wonder if that makes suicide illegal. Because, believe it or not, it has been illegal in the real world in history. There were laws that directly punished people who committed suicide by, for example, there was a law in the German Reich, the first one, that if you committed suicide, your estate would be forfeit, and therefore your family would be left destitute. because the state, because the emperor would take your estate. And the reasoning was much as it is here, that your life is not your own, it's the king's, to do as he wishes. And by killing yourself, you're depriving him of resources. This extends to several spheres of influence. Among others, it grants protection to the enemies who surrender in times of war, and it forbids suicide. To dispense with the Overlord's vassal and property is prohibited. Okay, so it is forbidden to kill yourself. Remind me how the Overlord's name may be used. It is not forbidden to cross one's tongue with Kyros' name, but it behooves one to use caution and respect. The Overlord's name is not yours to give, whether to progeny, product, location or abstraction. Slander of the Overlord is punishable by death. There is only one Kyros and her name is safeguarded. No one else may say Kyros and have it obfuscated by a second meaning. And neither will her name be associated to trivialities. A gambler will not attribute his fortune to Kyros' luck, or his misfortune to Kyros' scorn. Such an association lowers the Overlord in the public estimate, and is rightly considered slander most foul. Let us discuss the Old Walls. The Old Walls are forbidden, as are their contents and their denizens. Owning any item from the Old Walls is considered a trespass, regardless of how it came into your possession. Mind that in the course of your travels. As the Old Walls extend across much of the tiers, Kyros permits her servants to pass only where she has sculpted the landscape to permit traverse. Under no circumstance you are to enter a breach in the Old Walls, even for a task as innocent as crossing to the other side. If these restrictions seem too severe, I would remind you that they are for the protection of Kyros' subjects. The Overlord has no desire to see harm needlessly inflicted upon her loyal followers. Remind me of Magician's Folly. Practitioners of arcane art must be sanctioned by one of Kyros' guilds, such as the Blood Chanters or the Forgebound. Rogue magicians with a tenuous grasp of unknown powers will not be tolerated. A sanctioned maid whose spellcasting causes damage to life or property is lawfully deemed innocent. As long as they practice their art in service of Kyros, all is forgiven. Let us speak of quotas in sharing. The harvest blooms and the blights by the will of Kyros. In times of lean, you will be fed. In times of wealth, you will feed others. Okay. Interesting. So, Kyros' empire has sort of like government-sanctioned forced charity. It provides for the poor. Interesting. Like, overall, I very much like this game's depiction of an evil empire, because it's not, it's very occupied with effectiveness rather than mustache twirling evil, which most of the time isn't that effective. It cares for the subjects of Kyros to a large degree because they are a resource. You would be stupid to kill them without reason, or to needlessly exploit them, because if you make sure they are fed and able to work, most of them are probably reasonably okay with being under Kyros' empire. If you're a simple peasant, you don't really probably think or even conceive of notions such as democracy or human rights or whatever. You probably are grateful to the Overlord if there's a winter and your crops fail and he sends his soldiers to some wealthy man and takes some of his crops to give to you. Like, you probably think, gee, that Kyros Overlord is sure a great guy when he does that. This law is a sizable category unto itself, serving many needs at once. Trade and tax being only two examples, the broadest intent is to empower Kyros' subjects to care for their neighbors and expect care in return. You might take note of the law's application to trade. A merchant's right to peddle their wares is defined by the permits granted annually. The regional authority has the right to decide if a merchant sells cabbage one year and sandals the next. Anyone breaking their restrictions is subject to immediate forfeiture of all assets. You need not concern yourself with the nuances, at least until they apply to this contested realm in a time of peace. I'm curious about restrictions on forbidden knowledge. Kyros herself sets the standards of what can and cannot be known. These restrictions are rarely enforced, but they are worth taking into account. During times of war, for example, the Kyros deemed the knowledge of the Vellum Citadel taboo. No one may possess the wisdom of that fallen repository, save for Kyros herself. Calling it taboo seems a bit like overkill, but to play Kyros' advocate, the world would be hardly safer if all had access to the lore of making poisons, or the art of arming brigands in fine bronze. This is for the protection of her subjects. Before the coming of Kyros, during the ages of anarchy and discord, powerful knowledge in undeserving hands leveled empires without thought or mercy. Kyros has no desire to revisit those dark times. Am I beholden to these laws is a stupid question that is most likely going to make you angry, so I will not ask it. I'm curious about you, Archon. Curiosity is not a trait that I encourage in my servants. Too often have I witnessed such activity leading down a path to lawlessness. However, if you find a better understanding of me will inform your work, then I will allow it. What would you like to know? Why is curiosity such a problem? Because my vassals are not selected for their independence of thought. You're an agent of law, the execution of which falls under strict confines. Your intellect may aid the tasks ahead of you, but your unwavering obedience is of greater value to me. That seems like kind of a shady, but I guess you could read this sentence in a number of ways, because you could read it as an honest inquiry whether I should strive to make sure that the laws apply correctly. Because at first when I read it, I thought it's an open invitation to, like, twisting the law, but you could read it in a number of ways. I will choose it. Don't you want me to interpret Kyros' laws to fit any circumstance? Naturally, but take care not to let your intellect veer you from the straightforward path. If that, I have seen it happen, and lost more than one pupil who thought themselves above the situation, convinced that they knew better. What happened to them? Anyone who oversteps their bounds is given an opportunity to amend their ways. Those who fail to heed my warnings show contempt for Kyros' peace and are treated accordingly. The purpose of the law is to set standards for others. Though I am generous with the freedom I offer to the Fatebinders, you are inextricably tied to Kyros' law. Straining that tether to a breaking point will reflect poorly upon you. Tell me about your rise to become the adjudicator. Curb your ambitions, student. My path to the days is not one that could be replicated under any circumstances. However, if your curiosity is determined, I will tell you my story. I wish to understand law and your execution of it. An admirable pursuit. You know much of Kyros' law and the maintenance of an order already. My history may tell you something of how it can be used to win wars. I came into the world centuries ago, before the dream of a unified Northern Empire was truly realized. My home country lay far from the borders of Kyros' realm, and our conquest was a matter of distant speculation. Decades before the rumors of Kyros' approach grew in panicked volume, I familiarized myself with the intricacies of her law. It took me no time at all to realize the benefits of our inevitable subjugation. I took it upon myself to rise in my country's governance as an arbiter of law and drafter of covenants, building some notoriety for my execution of fair justice. As my influence and trust of my people evolved, my decisions transcended to define future precedent. What my countrymen could not have surmised was that I have woven into our customs the very backbone of Kyros' law. I set the stage for the conquest of our floundering nation to join the Overlord's empire. By the time the armies presented themselves and offered the terms of surrender, we had adopted Kyros' peace in all but name. Our absorption into the Northern Empire was a matter of legal formality, negligible changes to our already beloved document of law. The people credited to me as the architect of peace, and for a time called me Tunon the Fair. As my importance grew with their estimate, Kyros could not help but learn that I played a part in her bloodless victory. Kyros' law has a breadth of intricacies that is unapproachable to the masses. I was chosen to interpret and represent the Overlord's will across the Northern Empire and beyond, this time as an adjudicator. It is my pride, my duty, and my life. What does it mean to be an Archon? I am a figure of power and significance, and under Kyros' mandate, I am able to exercise my authority for the benefit of all. Had I not earned the Overlord's approval, I would not stand before you. Did you come into power yourself, or did Kyros foster your talents? An astute question. Doubtless I exhibited some spark of potential on my own, insignificant, though enough to accomplish deeds of note. Only under Kyros' tutelage I have grown to these heights. Could anyone become an Archon? Absolutely not. Only a precious few grow into this authority. Were it otherwise, Teratus would have descended into pandemonium. Of those few who rise into power, fewer still have the self-control to make lawful use of their talent, and of those who can, fewer still are deemed worthy of Kyros' approval. Is every Archon subservient to Kyros? All are subservient before Kyros, but I intuit your meaning. The Overlord takes great pains to recognize potential. Before an Archon comes into their power, they will have faced harshest scrutiny by an agent of recruitment, if not Bleden Mark himself. Those who are found worthy of incredible deeds, but refuse to join their strength to the needs of the Empire, are doomed to die. Those who wish to make a name for themselves are invited into the fold, to serve and rule the needs of the Empire. That is the price of power in Kyros' hierarchy. Did you come up with the office of Fatebinders? Indirectly, yes. Just as I am the representative of Kyros' law across Teratus, you are the face of my judgment for the people. I took inspiration for the Overlord's example, as we all should. The people needed an approachable face to settle their grievances, and I am not available to adjudicate every sharecropper's dispute. The Fatebinders were an inevitable solution. What's the deal with your mask? This should be obvious to you by now, student. Since the answer is relevant to your duties, I will tolerate your ignorance and explain. The face is an uncontrollable warren of muscle spasms and reactionary contortions, sickening in its display of every petty bias. It cannot be trusted to audience or judge a dispute without navigating a gauntlet of subjectivity for all to witness. In my early days, before the Northern Empire spread to my lands, I fashioned the mask of listening out of stern, uncaring wood. The expression of enduring patience harkens to the testimony of my petitioners, taking in all evidence before weighing matters in their due course. Later in my career, Kyros herself gifted me the mask of resolve. You will find it almost identical, save for the brow furrowed in contemplation and weighed down by the burden of judgment. This is the face that dispenses the law, often the most exacting and unforgiving sort. I wore it when I brought Kyros' devastating judgment to the bastard city, and doubtless I will wear it again. Does the Mask of Resolve grant you the power of judgment? An astute question. Kyros would surely be within her authority to grant me the function to do extraordinary deeds. But no, the mask is just a symbol. Justice itself gives me power, and objective ruling is its own consent to enact incredible wonders. Such is my might as the Archon of Law. When I recognize a jurisprudent need, there is nothing I cannot do. What do you look like underneath the mask? I'm not going to ask that because I'm pretty sure he's not going to like it very much. Tell me about Bleden Mark. He is my headsman and an assassin without equal. His official designation in Kyros' hierarchy is the Archon of Shadows, though I wonder if he ever considers himself aught but a slayer of the unjust. How did he earn his title? His work away from the courts takes Bleden Mark to the dark places of the world, the Tears and the Northern Empire alike. Over time, Shadows became his dominion. They cloak him, protect him, and even fight for him if the need arises. It is said that Bleden Mark can travel to any place where shadows are cast. Only he would know this for certain. And does he serve you alone? Your question is flawed. We are all servants of Kyros. The Archons are also agents of their own interest, those chosen few empowered to bring order in the world in accordance with Kyros' peace. At present, he is my vassal and I his patron. The relationship is not so different from Graven Ashe and Cairn, the fallen Archon, or the voices of Nerat and his songbird Sirin. Me, the vassal of that psychotic monster? Even if I were still working with him, I would be as a peer, not as an underling. Sirin keeps her voice low, ensuring Tunon doesn't overhear her comments. Such partnerings and apprenticeships are common. They provide mutual benefits to the Archons involved, as well as a measure of oversight. Tell me about Kyros. Kyros is our overlord. She ushers us from the brink of chaos with a stern hand, and gestures to the way of peace. We are only too eager to follow in her perfect example. How old is Kyros? By our reckoning, her age upon Teratus is magnificent. Her true span defies measurement by our limited construct of time. It would be a waste of time to spend our few pitiable years attempting to solve a riddle of existence. Think of Kyros not as a subject to beginnings or endings. Kyros is, and Kyros will ever be. What is your relationship to Kyros? She is my master, and I her dutiful pupil. In this respect, you and I are not so different. I have the honor of Kyros' confidence. She trusts me to enact her law upon the boundless territory of her rule. I am only too grateful to serve. I am the voice of Kyros' will, the harbinger of her judgment, and the arm of her justice. I couldn't help but notice that you refer to Kyros as a woman. Beware of the trajectory of thought. Save for her perfection, there is little about Kyros that we could ascribe recognizable patterns. A power as distant and unknowable as the Overlord should transcend our petty dualities. Male, female, it makes no difference. Kyros is a mother to us all. Do you think Kyros' laws are fair? He's not going to like that either, but I am on Favor 4 and Wrath 1, so I think I can afford going to Wrath 2. Do you think Kyros' laws are fair? That is an irrelevant question. Kyros is law. It is the responsibility of fairness to conform to Kyros' definition of it, and anyone who believes otherwise is an agent of anarchy. Contemplate this as you deliver Kyros' peace to the frontier. If you fail to understand the importance and immutability of Kyros' law, then your work is but a perversion of justice. I have no more questions. Then be on your way. Okay, to be honest, that doesn't...
Will do.
You know, that shows you... It's pretty demented, because... Tunon is serving quote-unquote justice, but he literally admitted that justice and fairness is whatever Kyros dreams of it to be. Like, it is an autocracy in its purest form. There is no law, there is just Kyros. He can change his mind, and Tunon would follow it without question, at least so it seems. Okay, let's talk to Barik about him not being able to remove his armor. Only the slightest nod of Barik's dome helm offers any indication that the soldier noticed your approach. Are you okay in there, Barik? The Archon's decision changes nothing. I have persevered to this point. I shall continue to do so. For the sake of the great General Ashe and the North, well, there might be another way. Your master was very specific in his sentence. He forbade not only assistance from the Forgebound, but from anyone, anywhere in the world. Well, to be honest, he forbade any subject of Kyros to aid you. You split hairs, Binder. The whole of the world bends the knee to the Overlord. If that was the case, we wouldn't be in the tears, would we? Are you suggesting we ask some renegade mage for aid? You would discard the spirit of the law in favor of its letter. Well, I have a problem with this because I don't believe that, but I believe that in this specific circumstance because I don't really care for Kyros' laws specifically, to the degree that they don't seem to realize, which is bizarre to me. Perhaps some other way to free you will present itself. Your optimism does you credit, Fatebinder, though I fear it misapplied. The Forgebound would be curious about you regardless. The articulation of your armor is incredible. At the very least, we should let them take a look at you. My armor is unique. Perhaps it can teach them something about that will aid the disfavored. We can find the Forgebounds in their smithy at Letian's Crossing. He nods. Let us leave, Fatebinder. I worry that my presence offends these nobles' precious sensibilities. He bows his head to you and moves away, trailing behind him the wafting reek of fetid privy. So basically he still smells of shit. Which is pretty, disgusting. Apparently, Tunon actually likes me quite a bit. not so much for the voices of the rat, but that's mutual. I hate his guts. And welcome back, kid. Amusing as it would have been to watch the edict drop, I'm glad that you have lived. Bleden Mark, the Archon of Shadows, rouses from faraway stare, turning to face you with a wry smile. Though he stands still, he seems to shift in and out of shadows that shroud him. But to draw blood from your allies, the Archon flashes his teeth, flat and barely white, a sharp contrast from the shadowed depth of his face. He folds his arms across his chest, his hands resting against the bandolier of blades that span his wrists. The wording of the edict was clear. They were committing fatal negligence against each other by not cooperating. I didn't write Kyros' rule, I just enforced it. True enough, the disfavored and the Scarlet Chorus brought about their own demise. Those that lived should be thankful for your mercy. What has me curious is your use of the Tearsmen, the Oathbreakers of all people. You're content to cut down your allies, yet spare your enemy. Some would consider this an unusual choice. I already explained this to the adjudicator. If I did anything illegal, he would have sentenced me. He narrows his gaze, examining you from head to toe. Before you go and conspire with the locals too much, you and I need to have a little chat. I'm listening. Everyone's keeping an eye on you because you did something nobody has done before. Got a guess as to what that might be? Well, is it the... I'm the first person to take an evasive stance against your rhetorical questions. I am going to choose this. I am very tempted. Second, actually, but not that. He raises an eyebrow and his golden eyes glimmer with the briefest hint of amusement. Proclaiming an edict isn't new. Neither is surviving or resolving the commandments of an edict, but you're first to proclaim and resolve the very same edict, and it didn't kill you. In one fell swoop, you survived your second edict, resolved the one you have proclaimed, and woke an arcane structure that has slept for several centuries. Why are you telling me this? Did I do something wrong? Calm down, kid. This isn't a list of charges. He thumbs the blade of a dagger and grins. Prosecution isn't part of my job description. Executing a judgment, well, that's another matter. I don't care what you do with this information, but you should know the dangers you're on. The dangers you've put What? You should know the danger you're in now that you have put yourself on the map. I don't want to drum up more support for the Tearsmen, being the binder. If you want to drum up more support for the Tearsmen, being the binder that broke the Overlord's edict is a good opener for diplomacy. Not saying trusting them is the best course of action, but it's better strategy than watching Ashe and the Voices muck around without consequence. Well, there are some things I would maybe want to ask you. Not now. Try me somewhere with fewer prying eyes and listening ears. Well, thanks for the advice then. The Archon of Shadows shrugs to you in farewell. His golden eyes are alight with interest as he watches you. Okay, this was long enough, so I'm going to save. And end it for now. That's all for this one, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.